Welcome into Going for the Green with NBC Sports. I'm your host, Sara Perlman, live from the Media Center at Whistling Straits, and I am joined by Will Gray and Drew Dinsick to preview the Ryder Cup. Now, after being delayed for 1 year, it is back now in 2021. It's setting up to be an incredible competition. And guys, the United States is once again favored. They have the more talented roster, but the U.S. has struggled in this competition over the last 2 decades, just 2 wins over their last 9 tries. The United States right now minus 190 at PointsBet to win the Ryder Cup. And, Will, there's going to be 28 matches played under different formats. We know that the Ryder Cup features both 4-ball and foursome matches on Friday and Saturday, single matches on Sunday. This is different than handicapping your average tournament. So take me through.
Yeah, Sara, listen, this is, as you said, it is definitely a different animal. This is a team competition. We're used to seeing individual performances. It was great to be out here, be able to see the course already this morning out at Whistling Straits. It's going to be a different test than what we're used to. But you need to look at the team chemistry. And I think that as we're going to get into later in the show, it's a big factor when you look at this American team. And when you look at how the Europeans are able to come together, and the U.S. sometimes doesn't. And the foursomes format, which is alternate shot, where each player hits the first shot, the next guy hits the second. You've got 4 balls where 2 players are playing the same, each their own ball. You take the lower score. You really need to dial in this week on the format of each specific session to know what you're betting on and get the angle correct as you look to handicap who's going to be the first team to 14.5 points.
Right. And Drew, I'd kind of like to get your opinion here before we go. Just talking about the link style course, but what you're looking at first and foremost with these differing style of matches.
Yeah, the link style course is interesting because you think when it's on home turf, maybe we would pick a course that, gives our guys the advantage. But this, I feel like, kind of levels the playing field to a degree. The player that most popped as I ran my numbers for this course was, unsurprisingly, world number 1, Jon Rahm. So ultimately, it's going to be a very tough test for the United States. As I kind of look at the, and again, kind of marrying with Will's point here about the format, based on the experience, based on, just the general team chemistry that Europe has, it would not surprise me at all if they continue their dominance in the 4 balls, in the foursomes, and really put us into a tight spot come Sunday. Now, when it comes down to the singles matchups, obviously we don't know who's going to draw who at this point. But there is really no combination where I don't give the United States a sizable advantage in those singles matchups. And in general, our guys in match play, not a ton of confidence that these guys are all of a sudden going to show up and be team players and really help support each other outside of a few guys who we know have strong personal relationships. So I think this is going to be a very exciting tournament. Ultimately, I think you're going to have some great live entry opportunities if you want to support the United States here, because kind of as I'm laying out here, I can entirely envision a path to victory where if Europe comes out hot on day 1, day 2, particularly on the strength of their foursomes, and puts us in a situation where we have to come back on Sunday.
Yeah, Drew, I think it's interesting that this is a tournament where you really have a tangible home field advantage in golf, that this is something where the team that is hosting the tournament gets a say in how the course is set up. 5 years ago at Hazeltine, the U.S. wanted wider fairways and less rough, so their long hitters could just attack the course. 2018 at Paris, they tightened it up, grew the rough, and that played into the Europeans' hands. So we've seen the home field advantage kind of grow recently. Each of the last 3 Ryder Cups, the home team has won by at least 5 points. So it is definitely tending in that direction. I agree with you that Whistling Straits on surface doesn't set up as well for the Americans as maybe some other potential host sites could, but it will be interesting to see when you look at the numbers, and we're going to continue to crunch them during the show. the Americans are stacked. On paper, this is the deepest team they've ever had. There are a lot of reasons that you look at it and you say, there's no reason that the U.S. should lose this tournament, which is a terrifying prospect for a team that continues to lose this tournament. So the Europeans clearly have a secret sauce that they have been working with and relying on in that team room, and it'll be interesting to see if priced around 2-1 as an underdog, if they're going to be able to pull it through again this week.
So a lot to digest. Let's work through some of this here. And Drew, we talked about the home course advantage. Is there really one, as you mentioned, with this link style course? And as Will just said, what's crucial here is an experienced European team and a very young U.S. team with a little bit of drama and meshing issues down the roster here. So ultimately, what in your mind affects them more? Is it the course? Is it the young team? Is it the veterans for Europeans? How do you weigh all of this?
I think they're all factors ultimately, and realistically, the uniqueness of this tournament and in general the experience that Europe brings, particularly on days 1 and 2, I do think does manifest an edge. And if you want to kind of dig down, okay, well, how do we take advantage of this? There are a couple of fun markets, namely Europe to win day 1. I think is a lot of fun. That's currently priced, or even then you could break it down into simply just win day 1 4-ball. Europe is plus 200. Win day 1 foursome is plus 185. And then to win, to be first to 5 points, I think is another fun way to attack that at about plus 130 right now. So the fact that you're getting a reasonable plus money on Europe, to do well out of the gate, and they bring so much experience to the table, I think is noteworthy. Go back to, obviously the course was different, the fields were different, everything was different in Paris back in 2018. But realistically, they came away with the first ever sweep in the foursomes for Europe in that one. So this is going to be, I think, a very tough test for the United States to come out strongly. And I would look for pretty much any opportunity to catch them at a live number before we get to Sunday.
And we're going to get into our best bets and how to attack these markets in terms of Friday, Saturday, foursome, etc. Will, you talked about the age groups, particularly with this is the youngest U.S. team since 1969, the oldest Euro side since 1961. What is more advantageous? You have experience, but a really talented young roster.
I do think from the American side, the lack of experience is going to help them. Ignorance is bliss in certain respects, because the U.S. experience in the Ryder Cup over the last 20 years has not been advantageous. This is an amazing dynamic from the Americans, where 32 is old in this team group. Dustin Johnson at 37 is the oldest player on the U.S. side. Everyone else is 32 or younger. So you have a lot of players that have less experience, but they do have that youthful exuberance where they're going to walk in, especially for a home Ryder Cup. I think they're going to embrace the stage and the setting, and I think they could deliver. But I'm with Drew. I'm really looking to attack some of these micro markets. You look at who's going to win each session, or who could lead after day 1, the race to 5 points. I think it's interesting that we, from an American perspective, you feel like the U.S. is perpetually trailing in the Ryder Cup for the last 20 years, but the Euros actually have not won the opening session since all the way back in 2006. So the Americans have continued to get off to a little bit of a hot start, and then the Europeans usually bounce back in a big way in the second half of the first day, or certainly by Saturday. So I'm with Drew. I think that especially having foursomes up first Friday morning, it seems advantageous for the Europeans. But at the same time, history says the U.S., either home or away, does tend to get off to a pretty good start.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick finer point here on some of the experience advantage for Europe that I do think matters. Obviously, as noted, there are a lot more rookies on the U.S. team, only 3 for the European team. And there are 4 players on this Europe squad that have only ever played in one Ryder Cup, and notably Jon Rahm, who is the best golfer in the world. This is only his second opportunity to play in the Ryder Cup. Similarly, Tommy Fleetwood, who was absolutely spectacular in 2018. This is only his second crack at the Ryder Cup. But then you have some stalwarts here. This will be Rory McIlroy's 6th. This will be Ian Poulter's 7th, and Sergio Garcia's 10th. Interestingly enough, both Poulter and Garcia have incredible winning percentages in Ryder Cup play. And what's nice is these guys being older golfers and kind of carrying that experience, you can do some nice work kind of putting them together in teams with some of the younger guys. You can spread out the load so that they don't have to play, back to back in given days. Whereas with the United States, like, there are some serious questions about how you deploy your strengths. Do you play guys like Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka in all 5 opportunities, or do you try to spread them out, given that they may not necessarily, have good fits with some of the other potential teammates in the 4 balls and the foursome? So, the last kind of note here, amazingly, Lee Westwood's 11th Ryder Cup coming up here, and it's pretty cool what he's been able to do this season in general. Did not expect much from him, but gets married in Vegas, goes out to the U.S. Open, performs admirably there, and it's cool to see that he's still able to compete at an elite level. And really, I think all of this will manifest it helps narrow the gap, at least. I'll say that much.
Certainly experience on the European side. Still a lot more to come, including breaking down the liabilities at PointsBet for the Ryder Cup and our best bets here on Going for the Green. Sharpen your handicap for the Ryder Cup by utilizing the new collection of golf betting tools available exclusively to NBC Sports EDGE Premium subscribers. DFS users can view player projections and access lineup optimizers, while the EDGE Driver tool allows users to create customized searches and analyze the betting favorites across hundreds of variables. Use the code GREEN10 and you will get 10% off any monthly or annual subscription. We'll be back right after this.
Welcome to NBC Sports EDGE, your one-stop for everything fantasy, DFS, and more. Get up-to-date news and insights from our award-winning analysts. Looking to raise your game even more? NBC Sports EDGE Plus helps you level up with an array of premium tools and resources keeping you ahead of the pack. Learn more at NBCSportsEdge.com.
Welcome back to Going for the Green. We are now welcomed with Jay Croucher, head trader at PointsBet. A lot to break down here, Jay. We appreciate you taking the time. Earlier on the show, we discussed a little bit how many ways there are to bet and attack the Ryder Cup, but I'm curious to find out ultimately where the action has been on so far at PointsBet.
So just to lift the cup market has been the most heavily bet, as you'd expect, and a lot of confidence in the US there, where 70% of our handle is on America. I think that people are just looking at the roster just being so loaded for the US versus the Europeans. So despite the recent history, the weight of money is still with the US, and then also in the top US point scorer market, that's also been heavily bet, where Justin Thomas is clearly the biggest liability there. I think this is a really interesting market because it's not so much about the talent of the golfer being decisive in the pricing. It's about the opportunity. And so it is really just calculated guesswork there on our part, in that, we make Justin Thomas favorite, and that's largely because we think he's the most likely to get the most opportunities to play 5 matches.
Jay, you mentioned that there's a little bit of a soft science with handicapping that particular market. The top point scorer you've got for US and Europe as well as the combined. I've seen on the PointsBet site overnight some numbers have shortened. It seems like you're getting some action on Xander Schauffele for the top American. Victor Hovland's number for Europe, even though he's a rookie, that's kind of shortened up a little bit. Are you kind of starting to see some of that money come in, and if so, in what direction?
Yeah, I think so. With Xander, there's the expectation that, he will be in the mix as well to potentially play 5 matches. I think that the conventional wisdom is probably that JT partners with Spieth and then potentially Xander with Patrick Cantlay. And so that's why you're seeing those guys as the shortest on the board for the US. With Victor Hovland, everyone loves betting Victor Hovland. He's in that kind of young gun trio where every tournament people hammer Hovland, Morikawa, and Scheffler. And Matt Wolff used to be in that group before falling off a bit, but people just love hammering the young guns. I think Hovland at a bit longer price than John Rahm, who really anchors that market for Europe, like he anchors pretty much every market these days.
No, that's fascinating. Can I ask you a little kind of more macro question about these markets in general? Obviously, the golf betting, at least as far as I've observed over the summer, was much uptick was huge relative to kind of your normal golf season, which is exciting, and it's great for the growth of the sport, great for the growth of the betting handle. But now you're dealing with the Ryder Cup going on in the same weekend as college football and NFL. Do you feel like this kind of distills the betting market? Like the guys who are getting into this are just in general the sharper players, or do you think that you'll catch a decent amount of recreational action as we get particularly into the weekend and people start playing into the live market?
Yeah, I think the Ryder Cup is just such a huge event that it will have a pull, even if the NFL and college football are on at the same time. We're seeing, on a macro level, we are seeing golf handles shift much, much more in play. So while people will, place their pre-match bets throughout the week, we still anticipate that we will see more handle in play, where that's where handle is progressively now, tipping over that 50% mark for where we're seeing activity with in play versus pre-match. And I think that something with the Ryder Cup where, there's probably a level of, emotion that comes into this tournament, more than, your regular PGA Tour events, that we will see that tie into more in-play handle as well as people really get invested, particularly on that final Sunday.
So the Europeans have a veteran squad, obviously US younger, really talented roster, but we touched on this at the beginning of the show, Jay. There's a little bit of drama on this US team with Bryson and Brooks. Brooks kind of saying he wasn't sure if he wanted to play in this event. Does that weigh into the lines when you guys are setting it ultimately?
Ultimately, not so much, just because it's very difficult to price in people's feelings. We don't have a model for that. But I mean, it is one element where I think that, the additional experience on the European side, that plays a factor in their favor. I think that, when we talk about things like, particularly foursomes and also four balls in this format, like that doesn't weigh too heavily one way or the other, because at the end of the day, these guys, they're still playing golf. But I think the added familiarity with the format, that will help the Europeans. And then also, where that really comes into play is creating more opportunity for guys on the US side who have had experience, playing, in this match play team format. And that's why we think someone like Justin Thomas, who was so great in 2018, who has that experience, that he might get more opportunities than, say, Patrick Cantlay, who's probably in better form at the moment. But just JT, his experience in the format will probably create more opportunities for him.
Yeah, JT was 4-1 in his only it's crazy that he's only ever been on one Ryder Cup team, but in his only Ryder Cup exposure, he went 4-1. So interesting to see how that plays out. Do you take many notable bets on this stuff? I remember when we were talking about sort of the tour championships, you gave us this is one of the easiest events for us to cap. There's only like 23 players, and we, there's not a lot of that could go one way or the other here. Like I imagine it's kind of the same story here. There's not any, you're not looking out for somebody smashing a 200-1. Long shot that should be in the 100-1, 50-1 range. Is that the kind of the same story? There's not very many long shots to worry about.
Yeah, I think so. It's a little bit easier to trade just when there is a smaller field, when you keep your eyes on absolutely everything, and also there's just more players to a bunch together. And then as the money comes in, then you make your adjustments to make Justin Thomas the clear favorite for the US off of the informed money that's coming in on that. And then with the in-play market as well, I'm sure we'll see a lot fluctuate, a lot move around there. But an event like this is good in a way, in a trading sense, where you put out everything bunched together, and then you let the sharp money dictate who's going to short.
Well, Jay, you mentioned that you're taking the question right out of my mouth there, because this is an event. This is an event where you guys have had lines up on this Ryder Cup for months, and we saw the U.S. kind of in a -150, -160 favorite range, where they've always been favored, but not quite to the extent that we've seen more recently, where they ticked up all the way to -200 at your shop. So is that more of you guys having an opinion on the matches based on how the teams have become composed, or are you guys listening to the money and seeing where it is coming in and then adjusting your prices accordingly?
It's a combination of the sharp money that's coming in, but then also the US roster, certain players, really coming into form. I think that, someone like Patrick Cantlay 6 months ago, he didn't have nearly as high ratings he does now in terms of affecting the market. Even someone like Dustin Johnson, who found a little bit of form towards the back end of the season, who wasn't in as good a place 6 months ago. The same thing with Jordan Spieth at the start of the year. So I think that overall, the US roster, their guns have gotten better. Whereas there probably hasn't been the same upside on the European side, outside, of course, of Jon Rahm, who is the best player, in the world and in this Ryder Cup. But yeah, still, it will be interesting, despite the fact that, the US are heavy favourites. -190 is not -1,000. And, Jon Rahm is still the best player there on the other side. So there should still be a lot of room for drama, even though the US are clear favourites with us.
Jay, typically there is a home course advantage, but with this being a link style course, it doesn't really seem like that's the case. Is that weighed into your lines, and how have you guys evaluated that for this year?
Yeah, we think the course favours the US, and it's largely just because of the distance that's required. And you look at the big hitters on both rosters, and outside of Rahm and McIlroy, there's probably not that same length off the tee for the European side as there is for America. With obviously Bryson DeChambeau, but then Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, JT Xander, Scotty Scheffler. These guys are all really long off the tee, and so that probably favours the US, even if perhaps the advantage isn't as emphatic as it has been in years past.
That makes total sense. I love it. Yeah, go ahead.
No, real quick, before we let you go, Jay, something just came to my mind because I was looking through PointsBet, and I am seeing there's different ways to bet this as we talked. Name a bet, different features. Take us through what you guys are offering at PointsBet.
Sure. So, like Drew touched on a bit, you can bet on, who's going to be, the first to 5 points, who's going to, score the winning point in the winning match, all these type of things. And as well, we'll have additional markets in play with matchups, and pretty much any way that you think that you want to bet the Ryder Cup, you'll be able to. And if there's something that, you want to see on site that you can't bet on at the moment, then you can just use the name of bet feature and just request the market, and we'll price it up as soon as possible. So any way you want to bet the Ryder Cup, you'll be able to with us.
Jay, we're at Whistling Straits right now, and I look forward to seeing you here tomorrow as well. Appreciate all the insight and safe travels.
Thanks, guys.
If you're looking for even more betting coverage on the green and beyond, make sure to check out our podcast. Bet the Edge, powered by PointsBet, is live Monday through Friday to arm you with all of the actionable information you need to wager with confidence. Our crew provides you with unique statistical data, trends, and projections using our Edge betting tools, which our PointsBet partner helps power with real-time live updating odds. So whether you're eyeing the futures market, looking for player props, targeting some over-unders, or on the fence with an against the spread bet, give our podcast a listen to give you that extra edge. Still more to come, including our best bets for Ryder Cup right after this.
Welcome to NBC Sports EDGE, your one stop for everything fantasy, DFS, and more. Get up-to-date news and insights from our award-winning analysts. Looking to raise your game even more? NBC Sports EDGE Plus helps you level up with an array of premium tools and resources keeping you ahead of the pack. Learn more at NBCSportsEdge.com.
Thanks for being with us here on Going for the Green. I am in the media room here at Whistling Straits, and it's been fun breaking down Ryder Cup, but ultimately we're all looking for ways to handicap and bet this event, and it's tough. This competition with the U.S. now being minus 190 to win the Ryder Cup, I think there's better ways to attack this, and we certainly heard Jay Croucher, head trader at PointsBet, allude to all the ways we can handicap this. So we begin, gentlemen, with the prop market, and I want to start with the best team props, and then we can get into some more individual favorite bets. But overall, you look at the U.S. team props or European team props, and Will, I will begin with you here. What stands out to you?
So, interesting bit of inside baseball. The home captain gets to decide which session goes with which format, whether you start with foursomes or you start with four balls. So, U.S. captain Steve Stricker decided to start Friday morning with foursomes, which is the weaker subsection for the U.S. The Euros have dominated foursomes over the last 20 years. It's a big reason why they've won 7 out of the last 9. He's hoping to kind of hold court and then win with 4 balls in the afternoon. I'm not sure that's going to pay off. I really like Europe plus 180 to win the opening session. I know we already talked about it, that Europe has not won that opening session regardless of format since 2006, but I do wonder with the youthful exuberance of the U.S. team, there's some variables about how they're going to handle the pressure. This is a very seasoned European team. I think that the 4 matches and the 8 guys that they roll out Friday morning are going to be the best of the best, and I do think that they could have a chance to hold their edge, have a 2.5 to 1.5 lead at lunchtime at plus 180. When you're looking at plus 190 to win the whole thing, I like that micro market and that approach for Europe.
Yeah, I completely agree with Will on that. I've also bet into that. My fair price there, I made plus 145, and so the fact that it was as juicy as that was news to my ears. I think actually it's been bet down at PointsBet now to plus 160. I did not can't take credit for smashing that number there, but no,
somebody did.
Yeah, Will's breakdown was perfect, and realistically, the foursomes are going to be the strength of this European team. And realistically, that plays right into another prop that's worth looking at, which is Europe first team to 5 points. If I like their likelihood of getting out of that out of that foursomes, either 2.5 or 3 points. And then if we can get another 1.5 or 2 points in the night session, then that gets us to 5. We can finish day 1, Europe up 5-3 or thereabouts. And Europe is also first to 5. That's currently at plus 130.
Found some plus money backing Europe in the first day or two. Let's move along to best individual props. And this is fun. Obviously, a lot of different ways to attack this. Will, again, I begin with you. Who do you like?
So I will say Jay Croucher has me a little on my heels right now because I feel like that. Yes, I feel like I might be a sheep running back. I'm ready to go back to the well with Victor Hovland. I really like what I've seen out of the Norwegian. You can read into the tea leaves if you want based on who is playing with whom in the practice rounds early this week and which players are grouped for media interviews. Victor Hovland is in with Rory McIlroy, and I think that is a promising pairing and one that we could potentially see over the next couple of days. And I think that is going to spell trouble for the U.S. if you put Hovland and Rory together, regardless of if it's foursomes or four-ball. So I do like Hovland at plus 650 to lead the Europeans, even though he's a rookie. I could see him putting together a 3-1 sort of week. And then on the U.S. side, you really have to choose which path you're going to go down with in trying to find a guy that's going to have 5-match experience, whether you go Spieth, Justin Thomas, or you go Xander and Patrick Cantlay. I'm going with door number 2. I really think that Xander at plus 700 is a really good bet. I expect him to play with Cantlay and both of them to play well, and then it's going to come down to which of those guys wins their Sunday singles match.
Some money is certainly coming on Xander, by the way. Yesterday, plus 850. Right now on PointsBet, plus 700 to be the top U.S. point scorer. Okay, Drew, individual props. What do you think?
I'm going head-to-head with Will here.
Uh-oh.
The chalk in the top European point scorer at plus 325 for Jon Rahm is bananas. The degree to which his game fits this course and the degree to which I think it's entirely possible he could go 5-0 here makes him a very, very decent play in my book at plus 325. Don't even care who his partner is, honestly, in the 4-ball. It's like his distance over the field is that much for me at this course. So happily to take a shot there. And then another really fun market. PointsBet comes up with really unique and interesting markets, which I love. They hung a top point scorer among the Europeans' captain's picks. So I get to sidestep the debutante of Victor Hovland and just pick between Sergio Garcia, Shane Lowry, and Ian Poulter. All right. Padraig Harrington, countryman with Shane Lowry. The likelihood that he puts Shane Lowry in position to succeed at this tournament, I think, is high. And on top of that, Shane Lowry, I do have him popping for this course. You can get Shane Lowry as top captain's pick point scorer at plus 175.
Okay, I love all of the plays except you guys going head-to-head. I'll see who I ultimately side with. I hate to say this. I kind of like Europe at plus 190, the Europeans to win the Ryder Cup, but that's just me. Okay,
Sarah, if you get plus 190 in a coin flip, you're doing okay.
Yeah,
exactly. That does it for us here on Going for the Green. For Will Gray, Drew Dinsick, all of us here with NBC Sports Edge. Thanks for watching. Good luck with all of your bets and enjoy the Ryder Cup.